So recently, my friends and I did our annual fantasy draft. So today, I thought it'd be fun to go over each team that they drafted and see how each of them drafted. During this video, I want to give each team a letter grade. A+, of course, being the best of the best, F being the worst of the worst. I also want to talk about and go over where they drafted certain players in the draft and seeing what their best value pick was, or just in general seeing what their best pick was in my opinion. So to start off the video, we're going to go over the team that I actually play week 1. Now at first glance, this team looks really bad. The main issue being his RB1 and RB2. These RBs are definitely not RB1s for their team. However, I do think it's possible J.D. McKissic could come out this year and surprise everyone. The nice thing for J.D. McKissic is Antonio Gibson has been pretty lackluster. This is perfect for McKissic since he does have that receiving upside. Antonio Gibson lacks that. It's possible McKissic could get recognized for this, and Antonio Gibson could just move down the RB rankings for the Commanders. McKissic could be that RB1 for them. Now, if you look at his receivers and flex and tight end, you've got some pretty good options here. I have to talk about Davante Adams. We know Davante is going to be great. Pairing Adams with Lamb is a very good wide receiver 1 and 2, since they're both wide receiver 1s for their team with very good quarterbacks. Not to mention, A.J. Brown at flex will do wonders. And he will be a terrific replacement when Lamb and Adams are on a bye week. T.J. Hockenson will do just fine at tight end, given that he is easily a top 10 tight end this season. Moving on to the bench, there's really not much to talk about here. He drafted very poorly for his bench besides Adam Thielen. However, this doesn't really amount to very much considering he has such a nice receiver stack up top. With all things considered, I'll give this team a C. It's definitely not a great team, but it's definitely not a horrible team. During the draft, he didn't really have any steal players, so for his best draft pick, I'll go with Davante Adams at the 9th pick in the first round. The next team I want to talk about is very interesting to me. This team is the definition of boom or bust, but it's so enticing. We have Christian McCaffrey, who we know is a fantasy demon, but we just don't know if he can actually stay healthy. We also have Tyreek Hill, who we know has the skill, it's just we don't know how he's going to play with Tua. Deontay Johnson and Courtland Sutton are the same deal. We just don't know how they're going to interact with their quarterbacks. We know they have the skill, we just don't know how they're going to interact with their quarterbacks come game time. I do think it's a given that Lamar Jackson will do terrifically this season, to the point where this is basically his comeback season. I also think Rashad Penny is terrific, and this is a good pickup by him. However, with Kenneth Walker, I'm just not positive Rashad Penny will be that guy to the point where you can start him as an RB2 every single week. That might just be a bit sketchy for him. Mike Gesicki is also a fine and suitable option at tight end. I'm okay with that pick right there. Looking at the bench, he didn't draft terrifically, but, it could have been better. I think Patterson, Woods, Gordon, and Claypool are all good backup options. They're not really going to be any starting talent, but they're going to be good for when he has guys on bye weeks. It's an okay bench, really not much to brag about here. Which really does present an issue. We talked about CMC with a high injury upside, and the fact that, Tyreek Hill, we don't know how he's going to play with Tua. He doesn't really have much option here that if his players bust, he's going to have a player to replace that player and make sure that that player doesn't bust. That personally would be a very big deal for me, and that's why I feel like he's gambling big time with his draft here in this fantasy team. He really doesn't have a lot of certainty with his players, and it could just end up very bad for him. However, it could also end up very good for him. There's just a lot of uncertainty. We'll have to see once the season comes. With all things considered right now, this team I believe is a solid B. If everything goes right for each of the players I talked about, this team could definitely be much higher than a B. Just right now, how I feel about those players, I believe it's a B team. For his best draft pick, this one was very easy for me to pick out. In the first round, at pick 10, he got Christian McCaffrey. If Christian McCaffrey stays healthy, this very easily could be the best draft pick of the whole entire draft. Pick 10 for McCaffrey is very rare. The next team we're going to talk about is actually my team. The way I like to draft is to make sure I draft players that I think have the least amount of potential to bust. With that being said, let's talk about Justin Jefferson. Over the past 2 years, Jefferson has done a phenomenal job as a receiver, putting up good stat lines. And his situation has really only gotten better since those past 2 years. Minnesota has removed poor leadership and brought in better leadership, and this leadership that they recently brought in would like to pass the ball more rather than run it with Dalvin Cook. And who would be much better to pass to rather than Justin Jefferson? Really no one. Adam Thielen is okay, but you have a top wide receiver talent on your team, the ball is going to go to Justin Jefferson. Jefferson is definitely the safest receiver you can take in the first round, if not just overall player, and with confidence, I will say that this player will boom this season. At running back, I absolutely love Fournette, and that's why I went with him. Fournette's just one of those second round running backs that I can say with certainty that he is a safe option at running back. Tom Brady is a check down king, and I can realistically see Fournette getting at least 6 receptions a game. David Montgomery is definitely a bit riskier, but there's really not many other better options in the third round than him. DK Metcalf is another riskier play, but where I got him, I just couldn't pass up on him. He just has the talent. It's just his quarterback is the problem. Darren Waller is going to be a touchdown machine in the red zone. I love that pick right there. And there's no ignoring Darnell Mooney's talent. Great flex option right there. Moving on to the bench, this is easily the best bench that we have looked at so far. When you draft your bench, you definitely have to target your team's weaknesses. And that's exactly what I did. To explain what I mean, I want to start off by talking about Trey Lance. Now in fantasy, if you have a quarterback who has rushing upside that's very, very good, and with Matthew Stafford as my starting QB, I don't really have that rushing upside. Now, although there's a lot of uncertainty, surrounding Trey Lance, we can be certain on the idea that Trey Lance is going to be a rushing quarterback. So if Trey Lance shows that he can do it all rather than just rushing, it is very possible that he could be my starting QB this season. Travis Etienne is also here to be a backup plan for David Montgomery. Etienne has a much higher receiving upside compared to Montgomery, and if Montgomery flops, Etienne will be that starting running back for me instead of Montgomery. All around, this is a terrific bench, and I can make an even longer video on this bench just alone and how it impacts my starting lineup, but I'm not gonna. We're just gonna leave it at that this bench is terrific, and I did a very good job. With all things considered, I'd say this is a B+ team. Given that there's some uncertainty surrounding my team, I think B+ is very fair considering I have good players still. My best pick of the draft was easily Travis Etienne. I was able to get Etienne in the 7th round at pick 4. Given that he has top 15 running back talent, I think this is a terrific place to get him at. This next team I want to talk about has a lot of talent. Right off the get-go, the first thing that grabs your eyes are his RBs. The RB stack of Austin Eckler and Alvin Kamara together is an absolutely terrific stack. Both of these running backs are extremely talented, and not to mention their receiving upside. Their receiving upside is going to give him a massive amount of points week to week from each of those players, and I would absolutely love to be in that position. However, I would absolutely hate to be in his position with his receivers. Having to rely on Jalen Waddle and Gabe Davis week to week as your receiver 1 and 2 is not a good situation to be in. Gabe Davis is a flex play at best, and Jalen Waddle is probably a wide receiver 2 play at best. Having 2 wide receiver 2s on their team, respectively, is just not a good situation to be in if you're starting them at your main receiver slots. This receiver situation will most likely be the reason that this team has a downfall, if it has a downfall. Mark Andrews at tight end is a great pickup, great job on that. Damian Harris is an okay play at flex, but it's not too flashy. It's just a safe play, honestly. Not too big of a deal there. His bench is pretty good in the sense that it's playing to his team's weaknesses. He drafted both Mecole Hardman and MVS, which could honestly play out to be pretty good. With Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, I don't think there's much room for failure for those two. However, I do not think there's much room for major success for those two. Jarvis Landry is pretty good to have as well. I think he'll have some good games sprinkled into the season along there. But it's just going to be a riskier play because I don't know when those games are really going to come, to be honest with you. The main thing this bench lacks is running back depth. The only thing he has is Ronald Jones, and there isn't really much to boast about there. If I were him, I'd probably drop both Ronald Jones and Graham Gano, and instead pick up Mark Ingram and Isaiah Spiller. They're going to be great backup options in case Eckler and Kamara get hurt. That's only if they're available, of course, but honestly, still, he should get different running back options. All things considered, I'd give this team a B+. His current receiver situation scares me a lot, however, he does have some backup options, to be fair. His running backs and tight end are really what make this team a good team. For his best pick in the draft, I'll give it to Mark Andrews in the 3rd round at pick number 3. It's not a majorly flashy pick, but nonetheless still a great one since tight end is very important to have on your team. The final team I want to talk about is a very good team and one I would probably draft myself. He found the right balance while making his picks, seeing that he has a top quarterback, top running back, 2 top receivers, a top tight end. That is all balance. My only worry with this starting lineup is the fact that he has Antonio Gibson as one of his starting running backs. As I had talked about previously, Antonio Gibson has kind of been lackluster so far in his career. He hasn't really shown many desirable attributes to be a running back 1 for a team. With that being said, this team is in jeopardy of losing one of his good running backs because Antonio Gibson just really isn't a starting running back, to be honest with you. Najee Harris is a great pickup considering that he has a great rushing upside and a great receiving upside. I realistically see Najee Harris averaging like 5 receptions a game. He'll do great on the field. Mike Evans is a great addition, especially if Chris Godwin does miss time. If Chris Godwin misses time, that leaves a ton more receptions for Mike Evans to pick up, and he's going to do terrifically, especially on his touchdowns, as we already know. And of course, it definitely doesn't hurt to have Tom Brady as your quarterback. Terry McLaurin's going to have a huge role this season since I think Carson Wentz is really going to want to show that he's that guy still. As much as I don't like Carson Wentz, I really do think he's going to put in all of his effort this season to make sure that he can be considered a top QB. Not to mention McLaurin's a great receiver. He's going to have no problem getting the ball, honestly. He's just totally talented. Great player to have. George Kittle's going to be a top tight end as per usual. Not much to say there. He's just going to do great. Michael Thomas should have a terrific season. I love that flex option right there. That's a terrific flex play. And for his quarterback, I think it's very realistic Justin Herbert could come out on top as the number 1 fantasy quarterback this season. As unfortunate as it is, his bench is kind of meh. He doesn't really have enough of a solid option for his running back if Antonio Gibson doesn't do good. James Robinson would probably be his best bet, but like at the same time, we really don't know how James Robinson is going to be used with Travis Etienne. Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson will do a good job as backups. It's just they're not going to do a great job as starters, I don't think, for his team. And to finish off his bench, Jameis Winston is a pretty good sleeper option at backup QB. I mean, he's going to do pretty decent, I think. And not a lot of people are picking him up, so pick up Jameis Winston if you can. Overall, I'll give this team an A-. He did a very terrific job building a starting lineup and an alright job building a bench. I can realistically see this team going very, very far. For his best value pick, I'll give that to Michael Thomas. He got Michael Thomas in the 7th round at pick number 5, which I think is a very, very good spot to get Michael Thomas at. So that's going to be it for this video. This was just 5 of the 12 teams in the league, so let me know if you guys want to see the rest of the teams, and I'll make sure to do that. Also, with that being said, please let me know if you guys would be interested in me reviewing your own teams. I think that'd be a lot of fun for me to do.